Hello and welcome to everyone joining us today. My name is Jairo Hakopian and I'm a member of the Paris Committee of Capacity Building. I would like to warmly welcome you to this event on transformative coalitions, success stories for knowledge sharing on climate action and social justice. This event is jointly organized by the United Nations Universities Institute for Environment and Human Security and the Transformative Urban Coalitions in partnership with ICLE, Local Governments for Sustainability under PCCB Network. I am delighted to see the two distinguished members of the PCCB Network working together to cultivate the essential soft skills required for effective climate action. I look forward to hearing from our prominent speakers as they will share their practical insights on capacity building for fostering soft skills, highlighting success stories and lessons learned from capacity building for socially inclusive climate action. Before we dive deeper into the theme of this event, I would like to quickly introduce you to the PCCB. Established at COP21 in 2015, the Paris Committee on Capacity Building, PCCB, seeks to address current and emerging gaps and needs in implementing and further enhancing capacity building in developing countries. Its mission is to identify potential solutions to address such gaps and needs, including enhancing the coherence and coordination of capacity building efforts related to climate change. I'm a member of the PCB Working Group 3, which focuses on promoting awareness raising, communications, and stakeholder engagement activities. This includes events through the PCCB network that strive to enhance capacity building and raise climate awareness through creative communication methods. To learn more about the PCB, follow the link on the chat. To support the PCP's mission and mandate, the committee launched the PCCB network in 2020 as a voluntary association of interested stakeholders engaged in climate-related capacity building. The PCCB network provides a platform to share information on best practices, contributes to the work of PCCB in fulfilling its mandate, and seeks to connect with its peers across sectors and regions. As of today, the network unites 382 organizations from 98 countries, each focusing on various areas of capacity building in the context of climate action. The PCCB regularly mobilizes the expertise of its network members through events like these that address cross-cutting issues. Through the collaboration between the United Nations Universities Institute for Environment and Human Security, Transformative Urban Coalitions, TUC, and ICLE, we are excited to support engaging dialogues and learning opportunities on storytelling as a capacity building tool for ensuring socially inclusive climate action. To learn more about the PCB network, how to become a member, and its collaboration possibilities as a member, follow the link on the chat. Moving on, I would like to dive into the content of today's exciting event. The session starts with introduction of speakers, followed by interactive audience poll. Then we will have compelling success stories to nurture the soft skills that underpin socially inclusive climate action. The speakers will not only share their experiences, but also provide valuable insights on fostering effective communication, co-development, problem solving, joint decision making, and shaping visionary leadership. This will be followed by a practical insights and co-creation segment highlighting the do's and don'ts of soft skills. Through this event, we aim to empower participants with the practical tools and knowledge needed to inculcate these soft skills and make a meaningful impact in the realms of climate action and social justice. What makes today's session truly special is that we have gathered a group of experts who have navigated the complex waters of socially inclusive climate action. And what is remarkable about the journey is their emphasis on these soft skills. These skills might be subtle, but they are powerhouse of transformative change. So let's embark on this journey with curiosity and commitment to change. On behalf of the PCB, I would like to thank United Nations University Institute for Environment and Human Security, Transformative Urban Coalitions, and ICLE for collaborating on this event. Thank you as well to our speakers and our audience for joining. Before I hand it to the moderator, I would like to inform you of some housekeeping rules to ensure we have a smooth session. Please keep your microphone muted unless given the floor by the moderator, and feel free to use the Q&A function or chat function for any questions or comments. The webinar will be recorded and later uploaded to the PCB's YouTube channel and event page, as well as outcomes report. After the event, we will kindly request your cooperation in completing a post-event survey. Now over to Andrea Ramirez, the Associate Academic Officer of UNU EHS, who will be moderating this session. Thank you.
Many thanks, Herofet. Good afternoon, good morning, good night, good evening to everybody. Welcome to this session. It's a pleasure for us at the United Nations University Environment and Human Security Institute to host this session and to welcome you, all of you, to exchange about success stories related to knowledge, capacities, tools, focusing on how to make climate action more inclusive and to push forward the social justice that all of us we need in our endeavors. So with no further ado, we are going to start to exchange with our speakers. But before that, we would like to ask you via chat, where are you? Who are you? And what makes you feel motivated today about climate action? So please share your name, affiliation, and location in the chat to start this exchange. And let's welcome also our great speakers. Today we have with us Pamela Elizarras, a youth climate activist. You're based in Mexico, no, Pamela? So good morning to you. Please, let's start with a quick round of introduction. And after you, Rocio will introduce herself. So, Pamela, welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, good morning, afternoon, and night to all of you. So, yeah, I'm a documentary photographer and climate justice activist from Mexico. I'm the co founder of Climate Words and Latinas for Climate. And for the past 6 years, I've participated in many organizations, campaigns, coalitions, and negotiations with a primary contribution through organizing and photography. In these 6 years, I've had the opportunity of getting into many different spaces. But to tell you a little bit more about the project, especially Latinas for Climate and Climate Words. Latinas for Climate is an international network of young feminists for intersectional climate justice in the region in Latin America and the Caribbean, and it was created after 8 of us were mobilizing for the Escazú Agreement, each in our own countries. I was in Mexico, others were in Chile, Argentina, Costa Rica, all over the region. And through those months of campaigning and advocating for the ratification, we witnessed the need for intersectional activism for climate justice in our region, especially because of the lack of um, rights that women in a region have, or just like all the injustices that happen that are connected to gender. So, our vision with this project is to raise awareness about the climate crisis with a gender and human rights and Latino perspective in order to educate girls, young women, and women in a region, but also to support them and empower them to for them to take action in their own way for a better future. And we do this by creating spaces for conversation and collaboration. And then,
Pamela,
yeah,
sorry to
sorry.
interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you, but now you give me the best entry point to introduce Rocio, and later on
Perfect.
we will come back to
Sorry.
your success story if that's okay.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you so much. Rocio, welcome.
Hello,
Uh,
everyone. Good morning from here in Guatemala. It's like 6 a.m. here, so I'm waking up early. So, well, my name is Rocio Silva. Thank you for the invitation. I'm a biologist from Guatemala and part of the first cohort of the Climate Solution Lab of Impulsal, and also the co-founder of ILOS, that it's a community entrepreneurship laboratory. Our mission is to establish long-term partnership with communities to project creation. We are five members in ILOS in the base board. We are from disciplines of environment and socials. So we're trying to make an impact in these communities. And my work mainly focuses on empowering local management of sustainable community projects, lead also environmental education projects and ecosystem monitoring through bird populations. We're working mainly in the coastal marine protected area that is located in the Pacific coast of Guatemala. And well, my ultimate goal from this project is to share opportunities with individuals and groups, also empowering them to make a positive impact on their communities and the environment, always focusing on climate change. Thank you.
Rocio, thank you very much. I think that you will enjoy next speaker also, the Puria Salehi from ICLEI, because his organization also focus on having this positive impact on different communities. So Puria, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. I'm thrilled to be part of this session. And thanks a lot to PCCB colleagues, Eva, Sharing, and Herabet, but of course, Andrea and Simona and the others who put together this wonderful session. And thanks to those colleagues who take the time to join this conversation this early in the morning in their time zone. My name is Puria Salehi. I'm the head of Urban Research, Innovation and Development Department at ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, the World Secretary at the headquarters that is based in the city of Bonn. And I oversee the research and innovation portfolio across all 24 ICLEI offices. And I am the co-chair of Research and Innovation Technical Working Group at Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy. And I've had the pleasure of contributing to a few international agendas, including the UNCCD's Global Outlook 2.0 as a member of their steering committee. But one thing that is very dear to my heart is the Global Research and Action Agenda that was co-sponsored by IPCC, which we have another wonderful co-author on this session, Simon Sandholz. And I am so glad that you're talking about something very exciting today. So I put a pause here and looking forward to hearing from the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Puria. Thank you for sticking on the time. Well, our next colleague, my next invite, it's my colleague, Natalie Sanger. So Natalie, welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Andrea. Yeah, also welcome everyone from my side. My name is Natalie Sanger. I'm based in Bonn, Germany, and I work as a research associate for the United Nations University Institute for Environment and Human Security here in Bonn. And yeah, in my work, I'm focusing on transformative tools and frameworks. I'm trained as a geographer and currently working on topics of urban sustainability transformations in the context of climate change mitigation, adaptation, and also social justice issues. And yeah, my success story today will be focusing on tools in this context and the toolbox I'm developing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Well, as you all have seen in the chat, we have attendees from all over the world, so it's wonderful to exchange in this conversation. I am Andrea. I'm a senior researcher as well at the Institute. I will be moderating, and our take-home messages will be delivered by also our colleague, Simone Sandholz. So I don't know, Simone, if you would like to exchange a bit with our audience right now.
Thanks, Andrea. Yeah, actually, I'm totally stunned by the comments and the like countries, but also from where you're joining here, and that's so rich. So yeah, my name is Simone. I'm also one of the UNU, so United Nations University people here. I'm leading the team in UNU, working on urban areas and sustainability transformation. We have many nice projects, including on urban areas. Natalie will tell a little bit about it, but maybe I'm just passing it on because we want to hear from you, and it gives me the chance to figure out what you're chatting. And I'm absolutely thrilled that Rosia and Pamela are here and are so engaged already early morning your time. So I hope you already had a coffee.
Yes, coffee after lunch, coffee before breakfast. Any opportunity to have a nice coffee is good. Okay, so thank you everybody for being here. We will have a very interactive session. That's our aim, to have a dialogue with the audience, so feel free to keep commenting on the chat. We will have an interactive poll also to ask you on your success story, your do's and your don'ts, because we know we all have things to share in this session. So it will be very nice to learn from all of you. We have 3 practical aims with this session. The first one is to get to share these practical insights from our experts. They, as you hear them, they have been building on projects and programs and big agendas, inputs. So we will learn more of how they are crafting these soft skills for social inclusive climate action. Then we will share with them their success stories. We will hear from them how they are pushing forward this capacity on the ground in different contexts and addressing these challenges of capacity building. And at the end, what we want to deliver is just to raise awareness of what we should push forward with the do's, what we should avoid with the don'ts, and of course, share this with our networks. And that's why after the session, we will deliver a very nice PDF with all the links and nice resources that you all can also start sharing in the chat. So this session will have two parts. At the beginning, we will hear all their success stories, and then we will do this interaction with our poll. So sharing, I will appreciate if you can start asking our audience which soft skills are most important for socially inclusive climate action. And in the meantime, if Pamela wants to start sharing her story, that will be great.
So, do I talk about my soft skills and tell like the story of how I've used them, or?
Yes, please. Let's share your story. You have a couple of minutes to create awareness on
do's and don'ts. I don't
the do's
share.
and don'ts we can do later on, or you can use
Okay,
it as
great.
you
Just
prefer.
wanted to
But
share.
success story will be great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So my story. I started in the climate movement when I was a student, and in 2021, after I had been in the movement for about 3-4 years, I attended COP26, which you all know is the United Nations Climate Conference. And in that space, I noticed that the language being used was staying stuck in its science and policy niches, and very few people outside of the climate space were understanding the key climate terms. And at the same time, many words were being misused and exaggerated for greenwashing or even political messaging. So in those 2 weeks, I was feeling very frustrated because one of the reasons why I was like, okay, if like this might be one of the reasons why people are not taking climate action as fast as we need to. Maybe people are just not understanding the language, and that's why there's so much misinformation and confusion. So with that, I kind of reflected after the conference, talked to a few friends also in activism, and together we founded Climate Words, which is basically a climate dictionary of words defined by experts in specific fields. So what makes it different from a dictionary is that it's done by people's own stories and language to make it more personal and easy to understand. So I've been focusing on that project since to increase climate literacy.
Wonderful, Pamela. Thank you so much. It's so good to hear stories first from moving frustration to inspiration. So that's great. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, later on, if you want, please share in the chat the link for the audience so they can reach the content that you have been creating, because it's amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, our next speaker will be Natalie, to have a different geographical context now in our speaker. So Natalie, please share your success story with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Yeah, so I've also worked in climate change, but from a research perspective. So yeah, I work in research, and as we all know, that we need rapid and radical decarbonization efforts, especially in cities, to actually meet the global emission reduction targets that were agreed upon. And to make this also sustainable at the same time, these also have to be socially just. However, during my research, I identified that there is a lack of specific guidance or a specific toolbox that actually shows how urban actors can collaborate with each other and to lead their cities towards a more just and a carbon-free future. So my role in my work, I work for the Transformative Urban Coalitions project. I lead the co-development process of a toolbox to precisely fill this gap. And the unique thing about this toolbox is that it's basically a collection of best practice tools and lessons learned from the 5 Latin American cities we are working with in this project. And throughout this co-development process, so we have in total a number of 286 tools, which have been previously identified based on local needs. Those have been applied on the ground in the 5 cities, so in 5 different contexts. So far, we also have 18 of these tools fully evaluated and validated together with our local partners. This process is also still ongoing. And during this process or throughout this process, it has on one side, or it has not only informed the toolbox in itself or the product in itself, but it also has enabled and learned from meaningful engagement with our local partners on the ground, with local actors. It has also motivated social learning and also helped people to identify themselves with climate action. And just to give you one specific example of a tool that we have been co-developing and that is really close to my heart is a card game that we are co-developing together with a local contractor. And this card game aims to raise awareness in local communities on the issue of climate change and social injustice, and also how those topics are interconnected with each other in urban areas. And this card game has been developed by a local contractor from Teresina, which is one of the cities in Brazil we're working with. And in Teresina, this game has worked really well. So we also took it to other cities and tested it. And I've been myself to Argentina in the beginning of the year, to Buenos Aires to test the card game. And it was also my first time being on field research. And it was a lot of fun to test the game and to play it with local communities on the grounds and also with different target groups. And throughout the test rounds, we've collected valuable feedback from local communities that helped us to take this game further and to develop the game, so the tool further. And we realized that we need to simplify the game, especially from a communications perspective. And this was like a new insight we had, especially from testing this game in Buenos Aires. We had, for example, someone from the local community suggesting that how can you actually win a game against climate change and social injustice, and that we should rather talk about how do we improve our living conditions here instead of trying to develop a game to basically win. And just to I just wanted to show you how we are taking these lessons learned and gather everything together in this toolbox that we're developing. So based on this process, my aim is to make this toolbox available with all the best practices and all the lessons learned we have from different contexts and different cities to inspire and also to guide urban actors on which tools they could use and also how they could build and maintain active coalitions over time, which then steer their cities towards a carbon-free and more just future. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Very inspiring. When you have a time, please share with us the link for the Transformative Urban Coalition project, because I'm sure the people will be very interested in following what you just explained to us. So thank you so much. Rocio will explain her story after you. So Rocio, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, my story focused on leading a project in the coastal marine area here in Guatemala. As you know, plastic pollution is really a big issue through climate change. So we're focusing on that. In Guatemala, 43% of the households burn their garbage, and mainly it's women who perform this task. We conduct baseline of information about the waste management, and we find that 80% of the cases in the two communities that we are working, that it's El Dormido and Las Mañanitas, are managed by women. And also 57% of the families born in this generate greenhouse gases emissions that contribute to climate change. And also 24% of the garbage is buried. So this also contaminates the soil and water reservoirs. Well, the project name was Participatory and Resilient Management of Plastic Waste in the Hawaii Coastal Marine Protected Area. We're focusing in these communities because we were already been like in contact and been working here. And also these communities are like really trying to make a change and trying to contribute to the protected area here. So this project is based on ILO's Community Entrepreneurship Laboratory model. This model focuses on creating alliances with organization groups for the development of sustainable projects over time, trying to make the project sustainable. And the process includes the co-creation of projects idea and capacity building to promote empowerment and a reinvesting strategy. It doesn't matter if it is monetary or in the form of exchange of knowledge. And this reinvestment is addressing in themes of social, educational, or health issues inside the communities. For the project, our first step was to conduct participatory workshops to identify the issues related with the plastic waste management from the perspective of the communities. The initial participatory process was really the best part of the project because it was very informative. It offered us a really complete scene of the project in the communities. And also this exercise not only enhance our understanding of the challenge faced by the community, but also guide the direction of the woman-led solution formulation, because most of the people that participate in our workshop were women. So we are focusing on that group. We also developed a capacities training program in the environmental topics like solid waste management, climate change, integrated water resource management. And also in the process, all the participants, were women, which in the end identify community organization as a key resilient strategy for addressing the challenge of climate change, included plastic waste related topics. Currently, we are offer support and funding capital seed through a crowdfunding campaign we're doing with HIP Give, and also with the financial that we received from the Impulse Out project. This assistance will allow this group of women to legally constitute their organization and to implement sustainable solutions for plastic waste, and in the long term to make another initiatives that contribute to the conservation of the area and to improve their own livelihoods. We anticipate that the future implementation of this strategy will strengthen local economy, better prepare communities to the face of environmental and climate change with increased resilience, and have positive impacts on the marine coastal ecosystem that it's a really important ecosystem along the world. And the entire process will not only contribute to climate resilience and the conservation of this ecosystem, but also empowers these women, amplifying their voices and providing a platform within their community, enabling them to make a tangible impact and to feel like more empowering with their own terms. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Rocio. Very interesting and very multi-dimensional, very multiple dimensions where are taking place in your initiative. So great success story. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, and our last success story will come from Puria, and he promised to be a little bit more provocative. So let's hear his story, Puria. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I really appreciate that. I truly enjoyed the contribution from the other esteemed fellow panelists, and I was very excited when I heard that the theme of this event was to share success stories and do's and don'ts. Because on the one hand, I think knowledge sharing, particularly regarding achievements, is essential. On the other hand, I also think that sometimes we need to be a bit provocative, as you said, and try to broaden the way we approach challenges. And this is what I hope to achieve in this very brief intervention. So, as I said, I really enjoyed the intervention by all the other fellow panelists. And to offer something new, I would like to take a different perspective on this notion of sharing success stories. My observation throughout the decade of working in sustainability arena is oftentimes we talk about success stories a lot more than what we talk about failures. And I think this is a problem because it undermines our ability to learn from mistakes and may give us a false sense of security that we have a blueprint for everything and for success. So Nelson Mandela once said the strength of community lies in its resilience, born from its ability to turn setbacks into stepping stones for progress. And of course, like it's good to collect and disseminate best practices, but it is absolutely more important to think of next practices. Best practices can be replicated, but next practices can support transition. These next practices are innovative and transformative solutions that goes beyond the current best practices that we know they have worked. They're inherently emerging, disruptive, and of course challenge the status quo and the state of play to create new opportunities for sustainable performance and value creation. They can only be thought of based on failures, not success stories. And that's why I'm trying to change the lens a little bit here. I mean, success stories tend to be replicated, right? And they are not necessarily informing the next practices outside the box. On the other hand, thinking of next practices allows us to zoom out and take a step back to revisit what we are doing. And this is exactly where soft skills come into the picture. And in a moment, I'll unpack why. Speaking of climate change, this is obviously as an existential threat, and failure should not be an option. However, as we know, we are way behind meeting our targets, including limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees, and we have not yet failed. But we could argue that there have been a string of failures that are leading us down this path. When I think of responding to these failures with next practices solution, I think of the expanded climate and innovation agenda that we are co-developing with Mission Innovation, UNFCCC Global Innovation Hub, and of course, many other partners now are coming on board to further develop and operationalize that. So this agenda is built on three main pillars that I would like to draw your attention to. Put human needs at the center of our decision-making and thinking. It might look really simple, but it's not that simple. And then the second is like leverage emerging technologies. As we know, like the driving technologies of fourth industrial revolution has been really revolutionary on many fronts. They have changed the way we are living every day. Take the example of Netflix, how it changed the entertainment landscape, you know, in a very short time. And we do need to leverage these technologies before they become junky and as long as they are relevant for transformative change. And the third one is identifying and exporting scalable, globally sustainable solutions. We're currently co-developing and co-implementing this agenda now with city leaders worldwide to understand what they need to undergo the transformation to attain their vision and become solution providers. But to be able to put human needs at the center stage and revisit the way we are further building and reinforcing our existing systems, we need soft skills. Some of the soft skills that are integral to the thought leadership behind this whole expanded climate and innovation agenda includes creativity, and empathy, leadership, critical thinking, and counterfactual thinking. And I was so glad to see some of these were popping up during the poll exercise. And why do we need that? Like when you're talking about creativity, you're talking about experimentation. Without experimentation, we will not have any sort of innovation. And why do we need empathy? It's like I would like to give you a concrete examples. Oftentimes, we are framing private sector as part of the problems, like, oh, your carbon footprint for decades was so much, and like, yeah, we are right, but like, is it actually helpful? And do we want them to stop their business? Or like we need to now reframe them as part of the solution. So empathy comes into the place, and leadership. I like it. This quote that Kathleen Nash sort of on a panel we were a couple of days ago mentioned that leadership starts from one person, then goes to a family, and then to civil society, community, and then global community. So I think like leadership is also super critical. But for me, the most important one is critical thinking and counterfactual thinking that will get to that. But these attributes are necessary to drive this expanded climate and innovation agenda. And leveraging these attributes also contribute to engaging and mobilizing communities to co-create and co-implement solutions, innovate and adapt to changing conditions, and communicate the achievements and challenges of taking actions. Soft skills in general are essential to enable this agenda in two particular ways. First, by enabling the radical collaboration we need to achieve transformative change. And this means working towards multi-level governance, both and vertically, and giving actors such as startups and incubators and accelerators a seat at the table. And softer skills will allow local governments to better understand how to collaborate with wider range of sort of stakeholders and identify what is needed for an enabling environment. And then the second, we need to aim to integrate human needs into climate action in a more profound way. By 2050, we could have a population of 10 billion people, and already, based on my count by this morning, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 8.1 billion people, and many people can't live flourishing lives. So to better understand human needs and the barriers of and enabling factors, local governments must build capacities to engage with complexities on the ground, including new modes of sustained and inclusive citizens engagement. So softer skills will be critical for navigating these processes and the inevitable trades-off as they balance social, economical, and environmental value with the necessity of addressing the climate crisis. So I'll leave you with sort of one do and one don't. We do need to put human needs at the center of innovation and decision making, and using this filter of human needs to inform collective visions of future and identify how soft skills will help us navigate the collaboration. Like, what do we mean by that? Quickly, take the example of transportation. Do we need transportation, or do we need access? We need access to food, we need access to education, we need access to work. And during the pandemic, we saw that when the demand was there, the change quite quickly happens. It was not about transportation, it was about the access. And that's where counterfactual thinking comes into the place, like how we can revisit the way we are planning today. And one, don't rely too much on success stories and best practices. I mean, I disagree with best practices in the first place. I think practices, but too much, relying on them is not going to be helpful. We need to integrate reflective reflective practices into the way we work, and do not be afraid of making mistakes. Instead, developing ways to learn, adapt, and grow from them. And I would like to close this by another quote from Sir Richard Branson, saying that failure is not an individual's burden to bear. It's a community's opportunity to rally, adapt, and create lasting change for the good. So I'll share a few links regarding to this agenda that I shared, and I'm so thankful for this opportunity to exchange opinions with you. I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Puria. Very interesting. We will find commonalities at the end on how to frame these stories, success, best practices, not afraid of failure, experiment more. We will find a commonality. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much, Rocio, also, who shared her link on the chat. Please, Puria, do so as well. It will be very nice for our audience and everybody that is with us today to learn more about what you are doing. And Okay, it has been very nice to have this interactive poll. Thank you so much sharing for that. We have had 27 responses. So empathy, listening, adaptability are the center in this word cloud. I don't know if you can take a look at this as I am doing it right now. You can just click on the poll and it will give you systems thinking, research and communication, inspirational, public, visioning, leadership, enthusiasm, collaboration, counterfactual thinking, speaking skills, experience sharing, proactivity, humor. I agree, absolutely. So very, very nice. Thank you so much for taking the time of answering this poll. Now that we will continue to our second part of the session, maybe it will be a fast one because of time, but in the next part, we are moving to what Purya nicely introduced us, this segue of what are the do's and the don'ts. So sharing, please, let's share with our audience so they can rank. Yes, please rank your do's and soft skills for climate action and social justice. And according to this ranking, we will ask our speakers to elaborate a little bit more on that. Our options summarize somehow their success stories because we knew it. We knew a little bit of those in advance, but if you think something is missing, also please suggest it on the chat. We have counterfactual thinking, effective communication, collaboration and exchange, empathy and resilience, creativity and social learning. So if you could rank those, that would be great. Okay, then you, I think sharing, we can share one at a time. Maybe it will be faster for the people. I don't know if not, we do it all at once. That will be also good. The second question is about the don'ts. Why we don't want to push forward in soft skills for climate action and social justice. So we hear some stories about not working in isolation as a bad recipe, imposing decisions as well, maybe this resistance to change and to not lack of flexibility, which is also part of some stories, and these generic contexts and universal approaches, which is absolutely not represented in our stories that were very localized and taking into account context, gender issues, social issues. So if you could please rank those, that will be great. And then at the end, if you see these insights apply for both tools and trainings or only one of those, please let us know. Thank you so much. Okay, this will take a couple of minutes, but in the meantime, as you have heard, we have some interesting stories from different backgrounds and contexts. For us, it has been very relevant to highlight how we share some specific topics. So now that we have 9 responses, I will go with the order of these. Yeah. I don't know, sharing, if you can help me, please, to know the order of the response. Thank you so much. So about the do's, what do they want first? What do they rank first?
So for the do's, the first priority is collaboration and exchange. That's followed by...
Yes,
yes.
I hear you.
Okay, the second would be effective communication, empathy and resilience, counterfactual thinking, and the last one is creativity and social learning.
Okay, perfect. So who would like to start?
I can start.
Thank you so much, Natalie.
Yeah, so yeah, like especially in this toolbox development process, co-development process that I've been mentioning in my success story, collaboration is also one of the basically do's that I try to highlight, because I realized throughout this process that it's absolutely essential to work with people on the ground, to work with local community leaders, local contractors. We also specifically hire local contractors to engage with the works on the grounds, as we are my institute is based in Bonn, Germany, and we're also working with local partner institutions and local country teams on the ground. And this has been proven to be absolutely fundamental when co-developing and co-designing tools, as for example the example that I showed with the card game that we are developing showed. And so with collaboration, I also don't only mean the way how we work together with local partners, but also the way how we communicate with each other. And especially for me, as I'm somebody not from Latin America and also not based in Latin America, I'm absolutely dependent on the perspectives and the collaboration and the communication with people that work on the ground, so that I can basically lead this co-development process of the toolbox. So ultimately the product also fundamentally depends on, or the quality of the product, on the way how we communicate, so the collaborate. So the toolbox will only be as good, so to say, as good as we collaborate. So yeah, that's why I think collaboration is a good one.
Thank you so much, Natalie. I think your input also lead us to this effective communication as a tool. I don't know if Rocio, Pamela, who focus more on this topic, would like to exchange. Yeah, Rocio, please.
Well, I think the collaboration is really important. Like, try to make a really great group, like working together for a cause. Also, I will add that considering like the form of communication about different groups, because for example in my case I work with the communities that don't have really good internet signal, so it was easier to go to the places to communicate and be there and be part of the workshops and everything, like in Princess, as I don't know how to pronounce the name, but the last participant said, it's really great to have like this field work done, this like work in the field, to have like a really good like inputs and outputs about the process, and also trying to have more perspective, not only from our team, like the center of the team, and also the communities. Try to like get more information and more outputs about the people that are surrounding the media or the teams that we are working on.
Yeah, the human touch. Thank you so much, Rocio. Very, very interesting story. I don't know if somebody wants to volunteer to continue.
Yeah, for
Please.
me, I'd say collaboration is also at the top of my dues. But I would add teamwork and communication. I think in order to collaborate, you need to be able to communicate, and that, like, not necessarily in the if we have Zoom access or internet access or phone, whatever, but like real, like, in-person connection, or like just conversations. Like, how do we have tough conversations? How do we do goal setting through communication? And I think for us, what's worked really well has been nonviolent communication, learning to do that, as well as sociocracy, which that goes more into leadership, but being able to allocate roles, very specific roles, to each one of us. And with that goes like, yeah, like the way we work. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pamela. It's very interesting how at the end these soft skills are interrelated. We cannot have just one, but it's the combination of most of them, what makes out the most. Please, everybody, feel free to comment on the chat. I think it's part of the conversation, so we keep it more active for this part of the do's and don'ts. And then after this collaboration and exchange and effective communication and how these two come together, as Pamela just indicated, briefly also mentioned by Rocio, this empathy and resilience component of how do you approach the different needs, or how do you overcome this digital gap, or the facility to come in person and do the actions. We have this counterfactual thinking, so I think you're the man. Furia, you're pushing for
Much
this. Okay.
appreciated, Andrea. I think the other fellow panelists didn't leave much for me to talk on those soft skills aspect, and I myself enjoyed very much on that front. Before quickly jumping on the counterfactual thinking, I think I really like the point Nathalie shared about the lack of a roadmap or techniques and tools to facilitate the new form of collaboration fitting for the complex challenges we face. And I kind of think like that's something that we really need to sort of have counterfactual thinking probably, or revisit the way we are doing so. But by and large, I think when it comes to counterfactual thinking, I mean, we all know that that's a mental process of considering what might have happened or how things might be different if certain events or decisions had unfolded differently, right? In the past. So it involves imagining alternative scenarios and outcomes that didn't occur, but they're within the realm of possibility. And that would help us to reimagine the future. And I want to tie to the existing climate situation. I mean, the most recent report from World Meteorological Organization sort of confirms that, unfortunately, with the current state of play, we will surpass the GHG emissions, and therefore we can't limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. And it's really melting my heart when I engage in the conversations in prep for the COP. I see that the conversations are around limiting global warming to 2.0 degrees, and keeping 1.5 degrees alive as if it's dead. And that's a reality, apart from just like talking the talk. But to be able to really keep that alive, we need to change the way we are thinking, the way we are approaching it, learning from the past approaches, and put human centered solutions. This is super important. Like this is a challenge, and I would like to draw your attention to that. When it comes to local governments, subnational governments, national governments, private sector, we're only talking to a handful of people, handful of departments, just those who are working on climate and environment. Because what the main point in question is climate change. And this is not something that comes from me. Like during the convening of G20 and Mission Innovation a few weeks ago in July in Goa, ministers of countries like from private industry, economic development, they're saying that like the way it's being framed now under this expanded climate innovation agenda, we kind of feel, oh, we are now like part of the conversation, because oftentimes we okay, like the Minister of Development or Minister of Environment, and these are the people that need to talk about it. But when we frame it differently and say, okay, like we need to address the human needs in the first place, then we are opening the room for everyone, for all the actors, including all the different levels of governments, to engage in this conversation. And of course, this counterfactual thinking touches upon not only learning from past approaches and promote innovative solutions and thinking outside the box, but improve resilience, equity and justice, behavioral change, and adaptive planning. But in general, I think that like counterfactual thinking in climate change decision making allows us to reevaluate current approaches and prioritize human needs to foster innovation and hopefully powerful tool to design a more effective, people-centered, and sustainable solution for the future. I put a pause here, and I'm so thankful for this very meaningful conversation. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Very interesting. Okay, last but not least, creativity and social learning. I think we have touched briefly on that, but I don't know if any of you want to expand more. If not, we will move to the don'ts. Okay, I don't see volunteers, so we move on. Oh, okay, Nathan, thank you. Please.
Yeah, to briefly touch upon social learning, which is also or has been a central aspect when co-developing the toolbox, as I was in close contact with all the different cities we're working with, and we have also facilitated learning exchanges or knowledge and skill exchanges among the different cities we're working with, to provide a platform for the actors to actually exchange among not only best practices, but also on basically needs for tools, best practices, so what worked well, but also what didn't work well. To also relate a little bit what Puria mentioned beforehand, which I agree is equally important to talk about. Basically the stories, or in this case the tools that worked well in which context and why they worked well, but also which ones didn't work well and which ones and why they didn't work well. And for example, we also experienced while we evaluated the different tools and in the 5 different cities, that some of the tools that might work really well in one context in one city, but not necessarily in the other, which is why context in the sense always matters. And social learning in this context and facilitating these exchanges that we can learn from different experiences is really valuable for such processes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Natalie. I think this is a nice wrap up. I don't know if Puria or the other speakers would like to add more on that. If not, we move to the dons of the session. Okay, so the ranking for the dons started with don't work in isolation, then don't impose decisions, resisting change, and do not be rigid, and then consider the context as generic and have a universal approaches. So I don't know who would like to elaborate on that, or if you precisely don't think it's necessary to clarify why not, just let me know. And we Rocio, please.
Well, I would like to make a highlight on the topic that not impose decision and be open to change, because sometimes when we are working, mostly people as me, that we are working from the cities, not from the locals, we have maybe a really good idea that we think that it can change the livelihood of the people, but it's not necessary cultural, or in other terms necessary the best idea, and the people not necessarily will implement the project. So I will encourage everyone to try to co-create every idea that you have from the beginning with the people, with the final people that we are working to try to make more effective solution, and try to really hear the voices of the people that are facing more risk about climate change. I think it's really important also to participate in government and everything that is a really high level of decisions, but not set aside the local communities that have more risk about the everything that happened with climate change, like storms, dry seasons, and everything. So yeah, try to co-create from the beginning with the local people.
Thank you so much, Rocio, for highlighting this point. Precisely when we frame this event as socially inclusive climate action, this is one of the points that we want to address. It is not a long-term action if you don't have this interest of meaningful participation and engagement as a long-term action. There is not enough funding to support just pushing, or waiting things to happen or waiting to receive. We are all actors in these stories. That's why maybe this positive frame give us also opportunities to move beyond this climate negative perspective, but thinking that we are already doing a lot of on the ground. So I thank you all for sharing already on these points, because I think we have illustrated different actions or different approaches and different contexts that are doing something for being socially inclusive. So I think that's great. Anybody else would like to continue highlighting one of,
Yeah.
or yeah, please.
This is, I guess it's to add on to the listening part, or the communication, like listening to the other communities in the climate space that I've been, where you're constantly trying to talk with decision makers, policymakers. I would add to the don't list passive listening, meaning we need to practice active listening and see, like, really listen to what the other person is saying, even if you don't agree with it. Because I think especially in the conferences spaces, it has turned into like whoever you're talking that's outside of your like little climate bubble can be a bad guy, and it's turned into like good versus bad, and where you're just kind of like constantly arguing or have that, like, you're just ready to fight kind of vibe. So I would add active listening and seeing the other person for as a person, not an enemy. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Maybe one part of the dons could be also related to that, no? How we all have different roles, and it doesn't mean, or social justice comes in diversity at the end, and this opportunity to find different types of friendship and gradients of not liking each other, but we don't need to be enemies at the end. Yeah, please add.
Into each other's toes or into each other's shoes. That's the saying. Sorry. Yeah.
You're on mute, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Pamela, for sharing on that. Thanks, Eva, for reminding me. And I don't know if any other speaker would like to add on this point. Are we good? We move on? Yeah? Okay, perfect. So thank you so much for taking part of the do's and don'ts section. Our aim with this highlighting of the part of the stories was precisely to have this. Yes, Puria. Yes, sorry. I didn't see your.
Oh, sorry. No, thank you so much, Andrea. I think that was my bad. I thought that like you're going to other points of domes, but since there was just a couple of points in the domes that I just wanted to share, if that's okay, I'll just like quickly share it. So I think it is a very interesting thing to think about, even don'ts more than do's. And that's why like I was really enjoying when we were thinking about don'ts, and like oftentimes saying we are falling into those traps quite often working and in this arena of fighting against climate change. But I would like to just add two quick things to that as well, just food for thoughts and with others. I kind of feel like one angle is we shouldn't be like, don't be complacent, don't be satisfied. Because complacency is the enemy of progress, as we know, and it means being satisfied with the status quo and just little achievements, and it can take many different forms, like denying or downplaying the reality or severity of climate change and its impacts on human causes, or like believing that global warming may help some regions, or like really assuming that someone else will take care of it, or relying on voluntary actions as opposed to really sort of regulated type of problems. And the other don't is like, do not delay action. Like oftentimes we are wasting a lot of time for a perfect solution. Like, let's get it started. Let's get out there, do the things that we can do from any sector or any actor that we are representing, and fine, we can sort of mature up the action that we are doing. But this procrastination has unfortunately brought us where we are currently. Procrastination from national level, from regional level, local level, from public authorities, from private sector businesses and citizens, unfortunately. So I kind of felt like we should not delay the action, because that's a serious thing. Thanks so much for passing the floor to me, Andrea. Back to you. So.
Thank you so much. I agree. I agree absolutely. Finish is better than perfect, or please put the effort on the ground, because sometimes we lose a lot of not only precious time, but precious energy, because one of the common aspects that we could see in these stories is the need for motivation, not only external motivation. We all know why we have to do this, but we need internal motivation to wake up every day, to go to these houses, as Rocio was explaining, to move different type of actors, as Pamela shared, or to travel and go to a different context from your background, as Natalie was also sharing. So I really can tell in these stories that the motivation is also part of this kind of connector in between soft skills. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, absolutely. There is a need to reflect maybe beyond this open conversation about the soft skills, but how we systematize these approaches, how we already have actions on the ground, linking research, actions, policy, and of course, practices together to have results and evidence-based so that we can take better decisions in the future and avoid this risk of failure, even if it is a success story as well. So thank you so much for sharing. I don't know if anybody else would like to add. The mic is also open for the audience in case they want to share something related to these do's and don'ts. If not, we are going to start the third part of the session, which are our wrap-up, questions and answers, and take-home messages. So any volunteer, any question, any answer, please let us know via chat or let us raise your hand so we can give you the mic. No? Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Now, with my colleague, Simone Sandholz, we are going to summarize this fabulous session. It has been a great dialogue, hearing different stories, different approaches, and of course, different aspects of. Okay, thank you so much. Simone, I don't know if you want to start now with the take-home messages.
Sure, I can do maybe some reflections rather than big take-home messages. I think it's been a super rich session, and I want to say I particularly enjoyed this mix of very locally context-specific approaches, also sharing from very youth-driven initiatives, and then Korea, I think it's fair to say, we're maybe among the little more experienced in this Zoom room compared to some of the other stories and some global initiatives, but in the end, we share the same challenges. What became apparent was there's very, well, it was kind of a big picture that emerged in the do's and don'ts. And I mean, just to repeat, it was super exciting hearing from Pamela about the dictionary that she is developing to make people understand what the other one is talking about. And that tells a lot, right? If we need to go to a dictionary, not to understand what does this word, what this, not just for the basics, but to understand what is my counterpart actually telling me using that word, that term? And it's not about different languages. It's probably about the same language, just different backgrounds. And Natalie's story was along the same topic, right? How to translate this climate change and the need for it and the different system components in how to make people relate to it in a way which is meaningful by means of a game, because let's be honest, no one reads long documents or gets bored over it. So let's find different ways of doing it. And it was here that was super interesting listening to your local initiative for the plastic waste management to make this sustainable. And you mentioned the word capacity building, and that was in any of the other ones. And then Puria mentioned the explained climate innovation agenda that has so many partners. So probably in itself, it's already a discussion on how to get along, how to find the common goals, and then putting these human needs at the center. I also found very telling, because that also, even if not mentioned explicitly, that was in many of the other presentations, right? And then when you were referring to the do's and don'ts, and the success factors, I think one key lesson to me is, or the key lesson, it comes down to the human factor in all of us. In the end, we're all humans. It's about how we relate with each other, how we communicate, how we listen to each other, how we empower the other, how we create this safe space of co-developing or together developing something which is meaningful to all of us. And that is what it's about in climate science or in climate action with all of us. Because if it's not meaningful to someone, if it sounds still too distant, no one will do anything about it. So we got to start from the small steps. And I got to say, I particularly cherish that you dared speaking about don'ts. Because we usually don't, we tend to hide this, and we don't necessarily tell what didn't go well, while the learning might even be better with the don'ts. And if I tell someone like, oh yeah, please do it this way, that's amazing and it will totally work out, maybe that's less telling than saying, oh, try to avoid this one thing. That can be even much more helpful. And I saw there's many students also in the whole call, and I enjoyed reading the chat and then listening or seeing the backgrounds where you're coming from. Maybe that's one of the key lessons here in this whole webinar. So it was all about the collaboration, the exchange, the teamwork, understanding the local context, local empowerment. So it's the human factor. It's about us having this empathy for others and trying to also listen actively, not just passively, like that very much. And apart from the don'ts not being talked about, and maybe I should not talk about them so that you leave this session with the do's, because what I also notice is that the don'ts very often are kind of what comes out of ignoring the do's, so to say. And in the end, it's not about the do's are not just, it would be nice doing this, then my project gets better, or my initiative, my whatever. If we don't follow the do's, we might fail, because these are the essential success factors for, in the end, achieving something meaningful, for having climate action as rapid and as much needed as possible. And it's also about not delaying them. That I also very well notice. It's about the rapid action. So not take the list of do's, put them on your desk at home, and I think then all our projects get better, because, and I think I'm quoting Puria here, failure should not be an option. I think that's my takeaway last year. Thank you, Andrea.
No, thank you so much, Simone, for this wrap up and this perspective. I think it's a very nice integration. Of course, now we would like to hear from the speakers, their last take-home message, and where can our audience find more about you? Please, the floor is yours. Let me know who would like to start.
I can start. I guess what I want all of you here listening and interacting in the chat to kind of leave with is that we all have very different skills, whether it's soft or hard skills. And the climate crisis, unfortunately, but also in a fortunate way, it's so big that there's a space for each of us to really have an impact. And yeah, so whatever you do, whether it's science, research, policy, architecture, honestly, like whatever, there is a space for you and a role, a critical role that you can play in this. And something that's helped me find like my path has been the climate Venn diagram, which I've shared in the link. So I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but if you're not, I think it's a fun exercise to reflect on what you're strong at.
Great input. Thank you so much, Pamela. Thank you so much for sharing the information, for sharing the link, and for sharing your expertise. I think it has been a very nice conversation. I hope all the audience feel the same, but I'm very thrilled to have been moderating this session. So thank you so much. Rocio, please give us your last message of the session.
Thank you. Well, as I like focusing on working on the communities, I would like to leave you with the message that the change start locally. Also start today. Don't wait like more than 1 minute. We can start like with little steps. We have to dream with a big project, but we don't have to have everything to start the project to really start it. So with little like the steps, we can start to making a change. And yeah, we'll start locally and try to make a change and impact in the people. Also, I really like the phrase about putting the humans in the center, because if we didn't like supply the basic needs on the people, we cannot like start asking, like for example here in Guatemala, the people use wood to cook. So we cannot not ask to the people that don't have money to stop cutting trees for cooking. So we also need to focus in on supply the needs of everyone.
Thank you so much, Rocio, for sharing your story, for your daily efforts, and for being with us today now. Has been very nice hearing your stories and also seeing your background and the beautiful mountains in Guatemala. You transport us there. So thanks so much. Natalie, we're hearing you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. So yeah, what I've seen as kind of like the connecting topic for me throughout the sessions and all contributions from all speakers is really communication, how to create empathy, how to have constructive dialogues, active listening. I think all of us somehow touched upon these topics, and this is where I kind of like see where it all comes down to when we talk about climate action, social justice. So yeah, this is so fundamental to everything that we have been discussing, from collaboration, communication plays a role, social learning, communication plays a role, working in isolation, communication also plays a role. So I think when we think about capacity development, maybe this is also something that all of us working in different sectors, if it's activism, research, working for NGOs, I think everyone can improve upon communication. And I think it's also like an emerging field. We talk a lot more about transformative communication now, storytelling, digital storytelling. So I think, also this event has been like really nice and fruitful to me, hearing from, people in different sectors, and where do we have commonalities, and how do people communicate their climate stories in different fields, and what can we learn from that? So yeah, communication in capacity development, I think that's where I see a lot of future potential. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Just to wrap up on your input, also, it was very nice how for the next question, our audience also referred to both the need for capacity development and tools related to soft skills. So it is a very nice alignment, and we all need more success stories, testimonials, and evidence on how to better align these two for pushing forward climate action with this social justice approach. So thank you very much. Puria, do you have a take-home message?
Thank you so much, Andrea, for this very personable way of moderating this conversation. I think Simone basically recapped all the key takeaways, and then I was just like listening to the other colleagues, and I was just like thinking, one of the key points that came up quite a lot, and Rocio and Nathalie also flagged is communication. And the other colleague was mentioning that like we all, I think that was Pamela saying that like we are coming from different sectors, having some different skills, and how we can connect all these dots together. And this just like left me thinking a little bit, and it popped up on my mind about the brain science, and the fact that when it comes to communication, we see that media is oftentimes focusing a lot on dopamine, and in most cases cheap dopamine, right? Something that is mostly known as a reward neurotransmitter that is associated with motivation and quick hype and joy. While on the other hand, serotonin is something that is like this feel-good neurotransmitter. And why it is extremely important, because that really reduces the stress and anxiety of a community and enhances the teamwork and collaboration. And we need this atmosphere, this positive and harmonious atmosphere with individual and with different groups and actors to sort of collaborate to tackle this very, very pressing challenge of climate change. And when it comes to capacity development and developing tools, it would be lovely if you could like give it a thought from that angle, how we can develop our tools or capacities that is focused a little bit on serotonin as opposed to what is this common trendy sort of dopamine things. But I genuinely enjoyed this conversation a lot, and I'm sure, like, you know, I hope the participant enjoyed as much as I did. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for this message, Surya. I think it's interesting to learn how at the end all the science and information links to this need for new mindsets towards climate action. I think this is very relevant, but an overall and external image of climate action as a positive story. We are doing an effort because we can do it. This is something that it's inspiring from all the stories of today and from all the sharing testimonies in our chat. So thank you all for being here. It has been our greatest pleasure as the Institute for Environment and Human Security to host this session for United Nations University. It is a pleasure to be partners in this kind of events with ICLEI, with PCCB, with young activists, and of course, actions on the ground as important as what Rocio, Pamela, and all of you are doing. So thank you so much for being here. I think the session went right on time. I don't know, Eva, sharing if you need to add something else. If not, thank you all. Have a nice day. And I will keep you informed about our nice deliverable on the next communication on this session. So thank you all very much for being here.